At the invitation of Prime Minister of Japan, Shigeru Ishiba, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Japan from 29 to 30th August to participate in the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit. This will be Prime Minister Modi's 8th visit to Japan and the first summit with PM Ishiba. The annual summit between India and Japan represents the highest level dialogue mechanism that exists between the two countries, and it drives the agenda of the India-Japan Special Strategic and Global Partnership.
This is a significant visit for several reasons. It's Prime Minister Modi's first annual summit with Prime Minister Ishiba. It is also his first standalone visit to Japan in nearly 7 years. He last visited for the annual summit in 2018. This will be a visit that will be fully dedicated to the bilateral agenda between India and Japan. This is also Prime Minister's 8th visit to Japan since he took office in 2014.
The two leaders will review the special strategic and global partnership between India and Japan, including defense and security, trade and economy, technology and innovation, people-to-people exchanges, as well as discuss issues of regional and global importance. The visit will reaffirm the long-standing special bond of friendship between India and Japan.
India and Japan are trust-bound partners, aiming at becoming the two largest pillars of growth. Growth that is open, rules-based, democratic, the kind of growth that China could ill afford to supply. Prime Minister Modi may still miss his soulmate, the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, but we must go on. And with the present leader, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, both leaders should dream big and think long.
After Tokyo, both Prime Ministers are expected to travel to Sendai, a city known for its semiconductors, in a bullet train. India and Japan are two of the leading democracies in Asia and among the 5 top economies in the world. When the two leaders meet for the annual summit, they will have an opportunity to take stock of the progress made over the years in diverse domains, from security to semiconductors. India-Japan partnership also has significant implications for the Indo-Pacific and beyond. With camera person Anil Thakur, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Tokyo.
So a lot really on the agenda, Gautam, over the next 2 days. And now let's take forward the discussion, since we are expecting the business meeting to start anytime now. Professor Rao, coming to you on the economic relationship, there is already a CEPA since 2011, a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between India and Japan, and I understand that under it around 95 to 97% of the goods are expected to be tariff-free, yet there are various subcommittees that are, I think, looking at how to go about its effective implementation. So if you could tell us about the way forward on this, as well as on various means in which trade in both goods and services, more mobility of professionals, etc., can take place from here on.
CEPA was inked in 2011. Unfortunately, the kind of vision that was there at that point of time, we've not been able to achieve it as far as trade goes. Japan's major contribution has been in the investment domain. It has been a great example of public-private partnership also, because often ODA for connectivity, infrastructures, etc., has been linked to the private investments of industries, etc., that came in. Even today, as we are already seeing that Nippon Steel has given some amount of committed to have come into with more investment. So this is a partnership, public-private partnership has really worked well for Japan. Trade-wise, I think the major concerns that has always been is sometimes quality, and also with how the complementaries between India and Japan seems to be a little, has other countries which have advantage over India in many products, because say Bangladesh textiles have taken over, Thailand has taken over a few of the other things. But I think areas that we can really move forward is with respect to skill transfers of skilled migration of Indians, because having a demographic decline, I think that is one place that we can plug in. We've already started sending nurses out there for primary care, giving options through this mechanism, and it has been successful. So I presume that there would be small pockets of improvement which will ultimately lead to a surge of Indians trying to find options in Japan as for work and life.
Right. Ambassador Tayal, could there be areas where, especially when we've been talking about the kind of tariffs that President Trump has imposed on India, there are a lot of labor-intensive industries that might face a more disproportionate challenge, going forward, where their exports to the US are concerned. Could Japan kind of step in there to ensure that some of India's exports to the US find an alternative market in Japan? For example, I don't know, seafood, maybe textiles, footwear, leather, etc. Even gems and jewelry for that matter.
Yes, definitely so. See, Gautam, in the last 4 or 5 years, the global trade and investment has seen two shocks. One, because of COVID, and the whole world realized that over-dependence on China, supply chains, etc. is not good, and we talked about resilient supply chains. Now, since the beginning of the year, the whole world, including India and Japan, are facing President Trump's tariff tyranny. And the lesson to major economies like India and Japan is to reduce our economic dependence both on China and United States. And that is a new factor which is so important for the today's summit between our Prime Minister and the Japanese Prime Minister, because both economies are victims of these two shocks, the COVID shock and the Trump tariff tyranny. Now, how can we help each other? How India can help Japanese economy, Japanese can help Indian economy? There are many factors why Japanese investment has been slow, and we have to be very proactive. And many people are saying that this is the right time for the next stage of very dramatic and very strong economic reforms in India, because I can share with you and your viewers that for ease of doing business, the Japanese investors still find a lot of difficulties in India. Ball is in our court. Prime Minister and Niti Aayog are fully conscious of it, but they have to take some very strong steps to understand what are the constraints, whether it is Korean investment, whether Japanese, why 2 billion Korean investment goes to Vietnam and not to India. So we have to set our own house in order. Our friends are willing to invest, but we must acknowledge
so have we been looking at some sort of a single window type of an arrangement that Japan has with other countries? It has been given that facility by other countries as well.
Yes, but they're not working very well. And some states will take off and some states will be left behind. So one has to be more proactive, and very problem-solving approach should be there, so that when a Japanese company wants to invest in India, and by the time they come into production, the timeline should not be more than 18 months, whereas now it is 3 to 5 years. We have to address these issues. Otherwise, talks can be there. There is a lot of strong impetus from the leaders, but there are issues.
Maybe Professor Roy Chaudhary, a test case for that would be semiconductors.
True, it would be. We are looking at Assam now. It's an East sector development project. Act East is already impringed into it. Connectivity in Northeast India essentially is through the ODA program of Japan, as well as with the ADB investments. There is also a talk about Bay Initiative, which is now on hold because of political, disengagement between India and Bangladesh. But ultimately, if the Bay Initiative works out, that particular region of India will have a very, very strong development, especially now with semiconductor industry, but it is a low-end skill set semiconductor. So one should be aware of it, that this is only the stepping stone towards becoming much more building a skill set which will be engaging in a much more refined format of semiconductor industry.
Absolutely. Coming to you, Shubhendu, another sector of cooperation between India and Japan is defense. And the Prime Minister refers to not just co-production and co-development for India and Japan, but making here in India with Japanese support and technology and selling defense platforms to third countries. Now, we've seen that India has expanded its exports quite dramatically. We saw the effectiveness of Indian defense platforms during Operation Sindoor as well. And we are seeing how the first ever joint defense co-production platform, in a sense, is being co-produced here in India for the Indian naval platforms. But do you now expect that to move
unicorn,
forward?
Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's a must. It's a unicorn must, yes. So if you could tell us about whether there will be further momentum added to this.
Right, Poonman. First, this model, this trajectory of engagement is a time-tested one between India and Japan. Japan's technical advancements add to that India's scale and manufacturing capabilities. India's focus on indigenous manufacturing, and there you have a product, a sort of ecosystem, which is a win-win proposition for both India and Japan. Indigenous development of defense equipments is a critical priority for developments, whether it is Operation Sindoor or our own defense priorities. The focus has been to be able to make, develop cutting-edge products here in India, and also take those important steps towards becoming a reliable exporter technology. Japan already has a significant technology, the sort of technologies that are crucial for making progress in defense ecosystem. Now the security realities of the regions are also changing very fast. Which indigenous technology played a crucial role in India's own defense in the recent Operation Sindoor and the conflict with our neighbor. Japan, and also its own security concerns, its own security posturing is also going through an important period, especially since the Second World War. This promised protection by the United States is something that many countries, especially in this part of the world, far away from America, at one time it seemed just the presence of American soldiers, American promise to deter the threats and challenges. But increasingly countries here, which were traditionally promised by the greater Western power of protection without any conditions, are beginning to question whether that promise will stay, given affinities in geoeconomics and other areas. And they're also looking now, slowly though, in case of Japan, to look at the possibility of really reinvigorating their own defense ecosystem. And in that, because it's that model that we were talking about of engaging and cooperating with India and making use of its scale and market and workforce. So that is also emerging as an important priority for Japan. Its own security defense concerns need kind of scale, and partnership with India appears to be an important and a very confident choice that it appears to be making. And what happens in this summit, whether this security document is going to give shape to more tangible ways of engagement, something we'll have to wait and watch.
Certainly. Ambassador Tayan, if I could ask you, because Japan was perhaps one of the first countries which was forced to move away from the kind of posture that it had towards defense and security because of the attitude that I think President Trump brought in his first term, where Japan realized that it perhaps needs to rely more on itself for its own protection and not on the US. And it decided to double its defense budget as well. And now, of course, a lot of complementarities between India and Japan are also being explored further as well. Do you think that defense could be a component where the trade deficit between India and Japan could also be bridged in future, where perhaps India could be exporting defense platforms or equipment to Japan instead of just importing stuff from there?
one thing that Japan has moved quite a bit over decades from its pacifist constitution and very isolationist or kind of defense policy, just dependent on United States. And I happened to be last month in Tokyo for a 1.5 track 2 dialogue